Your mic is live on both Facebook and YouTube, by the way.
All right, man.
Nobody calling in, just me.
Okay.
And
I just got a quote back on my vehicle in transmission. I'm looking at like $3,200.
oh, dude, no.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what I did? I bought the extended warranty from the what do you call it company for $124 a month once I paid my truck off.
Yeah, I've had this vehicle for about a year and a half. I paid $1,500 for it. $1,500, and it's a 15-year-old vehicle.
Ugh.
I mean, I really like the vehicle, but it's one of those instances where, okay, do I throw a new transmission in it? And I mean, like I said, I like the vehicle, or do I spend $3,000 or equivalent on a new vehicle, and then I either have to finance this and then pay the higher insurance and all that kind of stuff. And to me, it's almost better just to replace the transmission.
Yeah, you're probably right.
You know, because a good vehicle is going to be at least, I mean, I'd be lucky to get a great vehicle that'll last X amount of years for $3,200, where throwing a new transmission in this one will guarantee it will last at least another 180,000 miles, which is where it's at now.
I'm telling you.
So, yeah, I may end up calling them back here shortly and be like, go ahead and replace it. I need it ASAP.
I'm telling you.
Yeah, vehicles, they're beating.
I'm telling you. Facebook guys, fans, go ahead, please make sure to like and share the posts, please. I can see you guys in here, but we're now on multiple platforms today, so I won't be able to effectively moderate the comments. So
you're doing Facebook and YouTube?
Yeah, I've got Facebook and YouTube live today.
All right. Might help push everybody towards one avenue when you're on all of them, announcing that you're moving to one or trying to streamline down to one.
Yeah, we're going to add a couple others as well, too, but it's all test phase.
Sure.
Greg, feel free to jump in here today when you hear some of what I'm talking about. This is fascinating commentary. I've been wanting to go over this. I wanted to cover a lot of it last night, but the guest lineup was overbooked, as you know.
Yep.
That was my fault, by the way.
Yeah. No, but the bump was a good move because that guest that was there, Ignacio, he was a really good guest.
Yeah, well, we're going to be hearing a lot from him in the near future, and he's doing some great things, and I really love the way he pushed the envelope last night. He pushed it farther than anybody else in the show has pushed it before, and he did it. He did it with a lot of couth.
Sure. Well, I think I saw something, I don't know how true it is, that the Nevada GOP senators have voted for Trump.
6 of them. In fact, the electors, they threw it to Trump. In fact, Kurt Schilling sent me the text earlier today. He says, holy, are you watching this? So I hadn't had a lot of time to go in and research any of it yet, but nonetheless.
I've been listening to the Arizona hearings that have been happening today, and they've basically just been asking questions. It's not been about where we're throwing our electors. So,
yeah, I understand one of the members of the media asked Brian Kemp a question today at the state capitol, and he started responding in Mandarin Chinese before he corrected himself and reverted back to English. Hey, tell me when we've got 30 seconds, if you would, please.
All right, 15. And 5. 30. Headphones still down.
This is Armed American Radio's Daily Defense.
Armed American Radio's Daily Defense, because they don't want me why I do it.
Presented by X Insurance. X Insurance. From the gunbroker.com studios on the Car Arms Platinum microphone.
They're never going to stop us here.
Here is your host, the loudest conservative voice in America fighting the enemies of freedom, Mark Walters.
I'm sitting here fighting for paperwork. Yeah, I've been waiting all day for the program. You'd think I'd be ready to go here and wouldn't have to pull anything out, huh? How are you today? Welcome inside Armed American Radio's gunbroker.com studios. With me today on the Car Arms Platinum microphone as we bust out across the country and around the internet and all over the globe and everything else. All of it presented to you today by X Insurance. I have really been looking forward to this program. If you missed, today, Monday, I do my recap of the Monster Cast quickly, and I'm going to do that. If you missed the show yesterday, it's up on podcast. It was outstanding. Alan Gottlieb in the first half of hour number one, amazing as always. I brought up some commentary, not doomsday stuff, but much concern for our nation. I won't rehash that now. Suffice to say, you can go back and listen to it. But we got some commentary from Mr. Gottlieb, who right now as we speak is landing in Washington, D.C. on a flight from Seattle. He is attending the Christmas party, the White House Christmas party tomorrow. So God bless him for doing that, and we hope he travels safe because he has our voice with him when he, in fact, meets with Donald Trump, which he will be doing individually over the next day. So I'm looking forward to hearing from him on that and bringing him back to the show so that he can tell us about it. Following Alan Gottlieb yesterday, my show was overbooked. So I'm just going to come out and tell you that. Last night's program was overbooked. No big deal. But Ignatius Piazza, the founder of Front Sight, jumped in with us for a half hour. And what a half hour it was. Talk about provocative conversation. Go back and listen. I'm not going to tell you, but I will say this. Ignatius Piazza pushes the envelope in a way that very few can and makes his point. And he makes it in such a way that you're kind of left scratching your head saying, I think he might have gone that direction. He's an amazing speaker, and he was a lot of fun. I also want to point you to his website that he talked about last. That's why he was on the broadcast. And that's trumpsarmy.us, Trump, Trumps with an S, plural, Army, ARMY.us. Here's the deal. He's literal in the sense of Trump's army. Trump needs help right now. Now, we've got some indication that there's a little bit of a 12th Amendment push going on in the state of Nevada. Don't know enough about it yet to comment, but we're seeing it, meaning electors are being thrown to Trump by the legislature in the state of Nevada. Could that be an indication of things to come? We don't know yet. We're trying to confirm all that as we speak right now. It is about 9 minutes after the hour, 4 p.m. on the East Coast right now. If you're listening to us delayed, you probably have more information later in the day. But nonetheless, Trump needs an army, and this is where Piazza, you scratch your head. Is he being? Yeah, go back and listen to it. It was wonderful stuff. Trumpsarmy.us. Here's what he gives you. All he wants you to do is get on the email list so he can keep you informed of his efforts to help keep Donald Trump in office. And if you do that, it doesn't cost you a penny. You get a free $2,000 certificate for training at Front Sight, the 4-day course that you can use whenever you want or not use. It's up to you. Trumpsarmy.us. Ignatius Piazza last night. Dr. Piazza was fantastic. Andy Hoosier, the voice of reason, made, I can't really call it a rare appearance. He's on the show a lot as a regular contributor, but in the evening, it's a rare appearance on the Sunday broadcast. Andy Hoosier, the voice of reason, jumped in with us. After Andy Hoosier, the show just kept getting better and better and better and better because Captain Matt Bruce, my good friend from AM 860, the Captain's America Third Watch host on AM 860, The Answer, and I guess about 100 other stations around the country jumped in for a half hour. We had a wonderful time with Captain Matt Bruce. And then, of course, the regular crew. The band was back together in the round table with Justin Moon, the CEO of Car Arms, Neil McCabe, I love this, the fellow at the Gold Institute, longtime Washington, D.C. reporter and longtime contributor to this program, as well as Brad Primo. So make sure you go back and listen to it. It was an awful lot of fun. But the one thing I missed out on was what I wanted to discuss with you last night. Because the lineup was so fluid, I put it off until today. And I'm going to start with some words from Scalia. Here's why. We're going to talk about a case, the Silvera case, Silvera Lockyer case. And I went back and I started doing some research on this case, and the judge's dissent, and I'll explain all of this over the course of the next hour, was so prophetic. He laid out flat out where we are today. I mentioned it briefly when I was talking with Ignatius Piazza last night, but he laid out where we are today, having no idea that we could have gotten here. Or did he know? Of course he knew. Our founders knew we could get here. That's why they wrote the Constitution the way they wrote the Constitution. It's why the Second Amendment is part of the Constitution. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But before I go to Scalia, I want you to understand something, that what I'm going to read to you are words from Scalia himself. Very important. All of us know someone suffering from Trump derangement syndrome. We know people within the firearms community who will tell us, Trump didn't do anything for gun rights. Look what he did for bump stocks. It's absolutely ludicrous. These people are, what's happened here is our emotions, their disdain, their hatred for Trump is overriding the fact, two facts that we can give you right off the, I could spend the whole hour on that, but I'm only going to just use two facts. Number one, the president of the United States, in this case Donald Trump, does not write law. He signs bills into law. If a bill doesn't make it to his desk, he can't sign it. He didn't get any bills that we wanted across his desk. And if he did, he didn't veto them, and he would have signed them, number one. Number two, you need not look any further than the judiciary in the United States of America and what Trump did to flip it. The Ninth Circuit out in California right now, the Ninth Circuit is just about dead even. Hundreds of judges, because of Donald Trump, that will uphold the rule of law, the Constitution, the way it was meant to be interpreted, which is as originalists, pure constructionists. You can thank Donald Trump for that. Hundreds of judges across the federal bench. And I'll just leave it at that. So when you hear that argument from someone, tell them to go pound salt. Donald Trump doesn't write law. Donald Trump, as the president, signs bills into law. If he doesn't get to him, he can't do it. Understand that. So let's go now, knowing that. Let's go to Scalia and let's hear what he has to say. The worst thing about the living Constitution is that it will destroy the Constitution. You heard in the introduction that I was confirmed close to 19 years ago now by a vote of 98-0. The two missing were Barry Goldwater and Jake Garnes. So make it 100. I was known at that time to be, in my political and social views, fairly conservative. But still, I was known to be a good lawyer, an honest man, somebody who could read a text and give it its fair meaning, had judicial impartiality, and so forth. And so I was unanimously confirmed. Today, barely 20 years later, it is difficult to get someone confirmed to the Court of Appeals. What has happened? The American people have figured out what is going on. If we are selecting lawyers, if we are selecting people to read a text and give it the fair meaning it had when it was adopted, yes, the most important thing to do is to get a good lawyer. If, on the other hand, we're picking people to draw out of their own conscience and experience a new Constitution with all sorts of new values to govern our society, then we should not look principally for good lawyers. We should look principally for people who agree with us, the majority, as to whether there ought to be this right, that right, and the other right. We want to pick people that would write the new Constitution that we would want. How profound from Justice Antonin Scalia. How profound. Because Scalia knew what was going to happen when the country got to the point that it's in today. The founders knew it. It's why they wrote the document the way they wrote it. Scalia, profound indeed. What we're going to talk about now for the remainder of the program, and I want you to keep what Scalia said in mind, because it's the concept that underlies everything Donald Trump did in support of the Second Amendment. His first, notice I said first, 4 years in business in the White House, by correcting this liberal imbalance in the courts that has a profound impact, big word we're going to use all day today, profound, but profound impact on our right to bear arms. Should a Biden administration occur, it will help restrain at the lower courts. How many times do we have to hear Alan Gottlieb tell us, week after week after week, how important the judiciary is? It is the number one thing that Donald Trump could have done, and he did it. And he did it to protect the Second Amendment. I would have loved to have seen him get some more bills on his desk. I would have loved to have seen him sign national reciprocity. I would have loved to have seen him do whatever it was he could possibly have done. But if it doesn't get to him, we can't blame him. So what did he do? He helped shore up our courts. Imagine what the courts, the federal bench, and the Supreme Court would look like with another 4 years of Donald Trump. So keep what I said about what not me, but what Scalia said and what I repeated to you in mind as we go through this hour, and know that it's under a Biden administration. I'm going to run out of time. I hate when that happens. Keep in mind what Scalia said. When we come back, I'll lay it all out for you. Back right after this. Don't go away. Clock gets me on this hour every single day, Greg.
I mean, we zip through this hour every single day.
Can't even get through you give me 30 seconds, I can't even get through that for the break.
Yeah, as soon as that 30 hits, you're like, holy crap, I ain't got no time left.
That's a fact. Let me know when we have that 30-second mark, okay?
All right.
It's making the editing much, much easier. Michael Kreitzer, if the Dems win in Georgia, they're going to do a hell of a lot more than pack the SCOTUS. I can promise you that. Promise you that.
Man, I'll tell you what, I'm disappointed with the Georgian senators. I was hoping they were going to resolve all the ballot issues from this November election for the January 5th election. I just don't feel like that they have.
They haven't done anything. They're going to pay a heavy price for it.
And then there's allegedly 1.2 million absentee ballots have already been requested.
Stacey Abrams is out running her mouth right now. That's essentially her telling you we're cheating in plain view.
Yep. And this
otherwise, ask yourself this question. Otherwise, why would that matter to her? She would have absolutely no idea who those ballots were going to, would she?
Unless they're giving her enough rope to hang herself.
Yeah, not so sure about that. She's got big money behind her in this state. And if you look at a photograph that accompanied one of the articles, that's all you got to do.
I agree. I'm hoping that they were smarter than this, but I don't feel that they are.
Yep, they're certainly not getting any direction from their governor.
China Brian?
Are we close to that mark?
Almost. 30.
This upcoming segment of Armed American Radio is being sponsored by Gunbroker.com, the world's largest online marketplace to buy and sell firearms, ammo, and related accessories. That's Gunbroker.com. Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to the show, indeed. You are inside the Gunbroker.com studios with me. I am your host, Mark Walters, today, filling your prescription for freedom from coast to coast across the country on dozens of radio stations. And I've lost count. I apologize. I've lost count. But we're all coming to you from the Car Arms Platinum microphone today, and every bit of it is being brought to you by X Insurance. Make sure to check out xinsurance.com. I'll tell you more about that as the show progresses. All right, so I ended, let me say, the segment with the quotation from Justice Antonin Scalia, who just an absolute giant in our Supreme Court. Boy, we miss him every single day. I will never forget where I was at the exact time and what I was doing when I found out he passed away. And my first phone call was to Mr. Alan Gottlieb about that. Today I'm going to talk with you a little bit about a different judge, Judge Alex Kozinski. And I've mentioned him a couple of times over the last series of broadcasts. And here's why. Because there's a quote from him that was so prophetic. It's almost as if he knew. You know, kind of like maybe the founders knew or understood that we could find ourselves in a situation that we find ourselves in this country today. So I'm going to harken back briefly to how I opened up the Monster Show yesterday by reminding you that history, world history shows, not me, not you, but world history bears out, maybe with one glaring exception, the Roman Empire that lasted a republic, not the empire, the republic, that lasted 482 years. 482 years, the Roman Republic, before it imploded and collapsed on itself when Mark Antony was destroyed and Augustus was installed by the Roman Senate as the first emperor. And that gave us a dictator, if you will. What does that have to do with where we are today? Because we're a republic. We're a democratic republic. The average life of a republic is approximately 200 years. World history bears that out. We're at 244 years. We're at a very scary part in American history right now. This country's on the precipice, and I know you know that. Very dangerous times. And the other side wants to take our firearms. They've wanted to take our firearms for years, and I've asked you this question for years. Why? What is it about the agenda that requires you to be disarmed? And I went through some of the stages, and I won't go into that now. I'll ask you to go back and listen to yesterday's broadcast. I think you'll find it fascinating, particularly when you put it in context with what we're talking about now. I'll ask you to trust me when I tell you that I went over those 8 points, and maybe I'll bring those back up in another break. We'll see. But Judge Alex Kozinski, Ninth Circuit, in his dissent to the Ninth Circuit's denial to hear the Silvera Lockyer case en banc, and I'll tell you about that case in just a moment, said this: the Second Amendment is a doomsday provision, one designed for those exceptionally rare circumstances where all other rights have failed, where the government refuses, pay very careful attention here, where the government refuses to stand for re-election and silences those who protest, where courts have lost the courage to oppose or can find no one to enforce their decrees. However improbable these contingencies may seem today, facing them unprepared is a mistake a free people get to make only once. Only once. So if you look at where we are today, courts that have lost the courage, what has Donald Trump been saying for the last several weeks? We need a judge with courage. The Supreme Court needs to be courageous. We have to stand up for our Constitution. Even if they did, would the state enforce it? Would a Cuomo? I don't think so. And Judge Kozinski, Alex Kozinski knew this. And again, I'll repeat his last words. However improbable these contingencies may seem today, and I'm going to tell you right now, this was in 2002. Wasn't that long ago, was it? However improbable these contingencies may seem today, it does seem improbable. Go back to 2002 and think about it. Facing them unprepared is a mistake a free people get to make only once. That means because they're no longer free. That's what Kozinski is referring to. What about the case? What is the case we're talking about? The Silvera Lockyer case, because that was a dissent, and I'm going to go over a lot more of the dissent with you in just a moment. But it was a decision by the United States Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit, as we used to call them, right? Ruling that the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution doesn't guarantee an individual right to bear arms. Keep in mind that this denial to hear this case occurred in 2003, a mere 7 years ago. The case occurred in 2002. But the U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that the court, because of their refusal to hear it en banc, they let the lower court stand, does not guarantee the individual right to bear arms. And it was a challenge. What the case was a challenge to the constitutionality of the Roberti Roos Assault Weapons Control Act of 1989. That's California's legislation that banned all of your semi-automatic rifles and called them what? Assault weapons. That was challenging the constitutionality of that. It bans manufacture, sale, transportation, or importation of specified semi-automatic firearms. The plaintiffs in the case, and I quote now, alleged that various provisions of the AWCA infringed upon their individual constitutionally guaranteed right to keep and bear arms. Now, there was a judge on that panel, Stephen Reinhart, who wrote the opinion for the 3-judge member panel that heard the appeal to the Ninth Circuit. And accordingly, they claim to have done extensive analysis and review of the history of the Second Amendment and all of its case law that goes along with it. And their conclusion was that the Second Amendment did not guarantee, and think about this, we're talking about 2003. In 2003, my, how things have changed. The court concluded that the Second Amendment did not guarantee individuals a right to keep and bear arms. Instead, this was the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal. Go back to what I said, or what I reminded you about Scalia, and why it is so important that Trump did what he did to the judiciary in his time in office that he was able to do. Think about what we're talking about here. Let's put this in perspective. To lose sight of this makes you foolish. We can't lose sight of this, ever. The court concluded that the Second Amendment provides collective rights, which is limited to the arming of state militia. Therefore, the Ninth Circuit refused to hear it en banc because they said he didn't have standing to bring the case because he was an individual, not a member of the collective state. This is recent history in California. This U.S. Supreme Court, by the way, denied cert in that case. They refused to hear it. Now, we have to go to the Emerson case, the Fifth Circuit Emerson case, because here we had a rift between the two circuit courts. Because in 2002, a decision by the United States Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit actually held that the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution guarantees the individual right to bear arms after much historical analysis and court review of attendant case law over the years. Ninth Circuit, no. Fifth Circuit, yes. More details coming up. This is fascinating stuff. Keep in mind what Scalia said, and then I'm going to read you part of this brilliant dissent by Kaczynski. Don't go away.
Ninth Circuit is the California court, right?
Yes, it's the California. The Ninth Circuit is comprised of Idaho, Oregon, Washington, California, Arizona, Hawaii, Nevada, and I believe Utah.
Idaho. So Fifth Circuit court's here in Dallas.
Yes.
That's why there's a difference.
11th Circuit is based here in Atlanta.
Sure.
Fourth Circuit, widely known as the D.C. Court of Appeals, is based up in D.C. Then you've got the 7th. You say they're all over. But yes, this is a fascinating case. The more I dug into this, and I found the relative quotes around it and things that for example, what Scalia said and what other judges have said over the years is just remarkable. Hold on one second. I'll be right back.
Right.
When we're back at that 30. I know we've got a couple minutes.
All right. So interesting dichotomy or dilemma that we might find ourselves in here is if Biden enacts all this gun control, like marijuana laws, states could find themselves at odds with the federal legislation by ignoring it and continuing with their state enacted legislation.
You mean Democrat governors would not abide by federal law or constitutional law? Is that what you're suggesting?
I'm saying Republican governors.
Yeah. The answer to that question is yes.
Republicans could find themselves, but the thing is there's a difference because the Second Amendment is a right, whereas the product of cannabis is not.
Yep.
And then again, I ask, which is the more supreme law of the land? Is it the federal laws or states' laws? And do states' rights trump federal laws? I mean, we know that the Supremacy Clause says no, that states do not trump the federal, but if we have a convention of states saying that we don't accept these federal laws,
we're at a point in America right now where we need something.
Could be an interesting court cases.
Yes, it is.
$30.
Back to Armed American Radio's Daily Defense with Mark Walters.
Indeed, welcome back inside Armed American Radio's Daily Defense. I am Mark Walters and I love this, the gunbroker.com studios on the Car Arms Platinum microphone, filling your prescription for freedom across the country today. Every single bit of it being presented to you by X Insurance. We'll talk about that at the beginning of the next segment. Suffice to say, for now, I want to read you part of the actual decision that came down in the Lockyer case. In Hickman, this court announced that the Second Amendment guarantees a collective right. That was another Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals case, the Hickman case, where the Ninth Circuit affirmed again its position in the Ninth Circus that the right of the people to keep and bear arms somehow meant the state, when people means people in the rest of the Bill of Rights. You've got to twist this stuff to make that assessment. Scalia knew that, and Scalia knew it could be done. That's who he was referring to in the opening statements that I gave you, those quotes from Scalia. That's why I ask you to keep those in the back of your mind. Scalia knew this. In Hickman, the court announced that the Second Amendment guarantees a collective right, not an individual right. As such, this court held that an individual plaintiff lacks standing to enforce the right to keep and bear arms because, quoting, the states alone stand in the position to show legal injury when this right is infringed. You don't. Somehow your state government does. This is the direction a Biden-Harris, Democrat, socialist, Marxist, communist, masquerading as former Democrat Party would take you. They want Heller wiped out. They'll pack the court to see it happen. They've clearly said it. Not this crazy gun nut radio host. They've said it. As recognized by my colleague, Judge Reinhart, we have no power to overrule Hickman. Only an en banc panel may do so. Thus, we are bound by the Hickman decision, and resolution of the Second Amendment issue before the court today is simple. Plaintiffs lack standing to sue for Second Amendment violation because the Second Amendment guarantees a collective, not an individual right, and thus plaintiffs are unable to establish injury in fact. Precedent mandates that we affirm the district court's dismissal of these claims for lack of standing. Accordingly, it is unnecessary and improper to reach the merits of the Second Amendment claims or to explore the contours of the Second Amendment debate. It's hard not to get in trouble. Okay, when you read this. Keeping in mind that was 2003. Let me go back to Alex Kaczynski in his dissent. And I'm going to read you part of that dissent. Judges know very well how to read the Constitution broadly when they are sympathetic to the right being asserted. Remember what Scalia said in the opening segment of the program. They can pick this right or that right or this right or a new right and create one and lay waste to what they don't like. Activist judges. Now go back to what I said about Donald Trump. Go back to when you hear someone, even someone that might agree with you on gun rights, say, yeah, Trump, we're better off without him. Really, that's the case? So if the Senate folds in state of Georgia where I sit, you wouldn't rather have a Democrat-controlled House, a Democrat-controlled Senate, and Trump sitting in the White House? You're a damn fool. To suggest otherwise is foolish. Take that right back to the courts. Good heavens. Judges know very well how to read the Constitution broadly when they are sympathetic to the right being asserted. We have held without much ado that speech or the press also means the internet, and that persons, houses, papers, and effects also means public telephone booths. When a particular right comports especially well with our own notions of good social policy, we build magnificent legal edifices on elliptical constitutional phrases, or even the white spaces between lines of constitutional text, meaning they pontificate because they agree with it. But as the panel amply demonstrates, when we're none too keen on a particular constitutional guarantee, in this case, the right to bear arms, we can be equally ingenious in burying language that is incontrovertibly there. Kaczynski is nothing short, 7 years later, of genius. This is a man that many attorneys who argued in front of him wrote articles about, wondering if they could get rid of the guy because he stood in their way. They hated him. I can think of somebody else they hated that stood in their way and still stands in their way. It is wrong, Kaczynski said, to use some constitutional provisions as springboards for major social change while treating others like senile relatives to be cooped up in a nursing home until they quit annoying us. How many times have we heard the phrase on this program from guests, myself, and others, and Scalia himself, Thomas himself, that they have to stop. They, the court, the Supreme Court of the United States, just recently, by the way, have got to stop treating the Second Amendment as a second-class right, as the redheaded stepchild of the Constitution. Thomas, Alito, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, itching to take a case. Now we have Amy Coney Barrett, who we pretty much know where she'll go on guns because we've got her own words. Roberts, forget him. Roberts is a pawn of the left and a pawn of the globalists. He's gone. Forget him. But keep in mind that Roberts did, on the court, side with us in both Heller and McDonald 2 years later in 2010. Heller, of course, in 2008. As guardians of the Constitution, we must be consistent in interpreting its provisions. If we adopt a jurisprudence sympathetic to individual rights, we must give broad compass to all constitutional provisions that protect individuals from tyranny. If we take a more statist approach, he was knocking his own court. We must give all such provision narrow scope. Expanding some to gargantuan proportions while discarding others like a crumpled gum wrapper is not faithfully applying the Constitution. It's using our power as federal judges to constitutionalize our personal preferences. I go right back again to the brilliant words of Scalia when we opened up this program. The able judges on the panel, he said, majority, are usually very sympathetic to individual rights, but they have succumbed to the temptation to pick and choose. Had they brought the same generous approach to the Second Amendment that they routinely bring to the First, Fourth, and selected portions of the Fifth, they would have no trouble finding an individual right to bear arms. Indeed, to conclude otherwise, Kaczynski said, they had to ignore binding precedent. United States versus Miller, he goes into, from 1939, did not, he said, hold that the defendants lacked standing to raise a Second Amendment defense, even though the government argued the collective rights theory in its brief. The Supreme Court, and Miller is not a complicated case, but it's argued by both sides. Both sides claim victory in Miller. The left is wrong. They've twisted the verbiage much like they did Scalia's own words in Heller. They did not hold the defendants lacked standing to raise a Second Amendment claim. The Supreme Court reached the Second Amendment claim and rejected on the merits after finding no evidence that Miller's weapon, which was a sawed-off shotgun, by the way, was reasonably susceptible to militia use. We are bound not only by the outcome of Miller, but also by its rationale. If Miller's claim was dead on arrival because it was raised by a person rather than a state, why would the court have bothered discussing whether a sawed-off shotgun was suitable for militia use? To come up with another conclusion requires you to twist the facts that are given to you. That's what Kaczynski is saying here. He's using their own theory, their own legal concept of judicial activism against them. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Now, I know we're getting ready to how much time do we have left, Greg?
10 seconds.
About 10 seconds. Okay. When we come back, I'm going to tell you, well, I'm going to keep going with this because it's too much fun. But I'll leave you with this. Here's how we'll start. The majority falls prey to the delusion. That's how we'll leave you. The delusion. You got to love this guy. Absolutely brilliant in this writing. And how prophetic was he? We'll go back to that original. We're going to do what we always do. We're going to slide right back into home base. Don't go away. Back right after this.
Scalia's constitutional brilliance is also why they killed him in that seedy trailer home outside of El Paso.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. I love your conspiracy theoriousness.
I'm often proven right.
Yeah, you are. I could go over this for 2 more hours easily. This is fascinating stuff. I'm having to leave so much off to the side. I hope I'm getting to every point that I want to make. It's hard to cram it into an hour. Let me know when we're at that 30 mark there, dude.
All right.
How we doing?
We're close. $30.
The following segment of Armed American Radio is being brought to you by Defender Coffee. When you drink Defender Coffee, you're making a donation to a gun rights organization of your choice that protects and defends your freedoms. Welcome back to the show. Say, I'm not drinking Defender Coffee today. Mine is like lost somewhere in U.S. Postal Service land, and I'm drinking some bourbon roast stuff. It's actually pretty good. I got it at Costco. It's not too bad, but it's in the Defender mug. DefenderCoffee.com. Use the promo code AAR and take advantage of all the discounts over there, at least 15%. If you join the coffee club, you get the discount shipping. I don't pay any shipping on it. What good's it getting me now, right? The U.S. Postal Service doesn't deserve my money. It's still sitting in Denver from last I checked this morning. Xinsurance.com is presenting all of this to you. If you're still monkeying around with kid stuff, basically, gimmicky stuff, ask yourself why. You don't do that when it comes to your life. You don't do it when it comes to your health, your automobiles, your homes, your toys, nothing. Why would you do it when it comes to your freedom? Get real insurance like you have for your businesses, like you have for everything I just mentioned. Everything that's worthwhile in your life that's worth protecting, you want the best for. X Insurance is taking the firearms community by storms, every aspect of it. Working now with the New Jersey Second Amendment Society and other organizations around the country, protecting them because they're real insurance, real business that writes a real policy for you and for them and for everybody else. Please visit xinsurance.com. If you carry a firearm, you'll find out why I have the policy and why you need one as well. It's real stuff. Get real. It's time. These are perilous times in America. Make sure you have the proper coverage. MyPillow.com. Guys, I don't know how to tell it to you any better. Mike Lindell supports this program in ways just incredible, remarkable. I talk to the people up in Minnesota every single week. Mike's out there right now stumping across the country on his tour, and the left is doing everything they can to destroy him and his company, his business. Think about that. Because he's an American, because he's a Christian, and because he supports a sitting president of the United States, and the left hates his guts. You know what you can do to get him back? Buy his product. Use the promo code AAR and stuff him a double whammy. Support the right to bear arms while you buy his products. Please, mypillow.com, radio listener special. Get mad about it and buy a pillow just because. Use the promo code AAR and help keep us on the airwaves. That's where that money goes. Car Arms. This is the Car Arms Platinum microphone. And, of course, we're in the gunbroker.com studios. I just bought some ammo from them. It's been delivered, which is a great thing. Gunbroker.com has everything you can't find in the shops, I can promise you. Gunbroker.com. It is also 100% free. Second Amendment Foundation, Alan Gottlieb, help us in these court cases across the country. We are being proactive against what will be a Biden-Harris administration if, in fact, Trump can't pull this off. And, of course, North American Arms, I mentioned them as well. All right, I want to go back because I do think it's important that I mention those 8 points from yesterday. I think it's very, very important. I was talking yesterday on the Monster broadcast when I opened up the show. I asked listeners to ponder some thoughts, as I did for you today in the first segment, Scalia's words. In this case last night, it was Alexander Tyler, who was a Scottish history professor at the University of Edinburgh. And back in 1887, he was writing about the fall of the Athenian Republic some 2,000 years prior to 1887. And he was talking about how democracy, what we know today as our republic, a democratic republic, is temporary, always temporary in nature. And he goes on to talk about how it cannot exist in permanent form as a permanent form of government. The average age of the world's greatest civilizations from the beginning of history has been about 200 years, he says. During those 200 years, these nations always progressed through the following sequence. From number one, from bondage to spiritual faith. Think of the progression of American history. From bondage to spiritual faith. From spiritual faith to great courage. Think of our revolution. From courage to liberty. Think of the outcome of the revolution and the liberty that followed. Number 4, from liberty to abundance. Take it all the way through the remainder of the 18th century into the 19th century, into the 20th century, about halfway into the 20th century. From abundance to complacency. Yeah, got pretty complacent, apathetic, didn't we? 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. Now comes the age of technology. Number 6 kicks in, from complacency to apathy. That's how Barack Obama got elected. We were sitting on our duffs, weren't we? The seeds of socialism that were planted 100 years earlier by Woodrow Wilson began being watered and fertilized by Obama. The party began its radical shift leftward. Number 7, from apathy to dependence. And number 8, from dependence back into bondage. And I mentioned last night, in my opinion, that we are right now between 7 and 8. Everything that you are witnessing right now today by this left-wing communist, Marxist, socialist, satellite radio moment word folks masquerading as former Democrats, because this is not the party of John Kennedy or Zell Miller or many other blue dogs. You can name a bunch of them. This is not that party anymore. Everything they're doing, from forcing you to wear masks, shutting your businesses, telling you how many people you can have in your own home for the holidays. It's all designed. It's not coincidence. It's all designed to see what they can get away with and how much you'll take. Notice the Democrat states that are doing it. The Cuomos, the Murphys, the Newsoms, and the rest. This is not coincidental. Let me take that back now to delusions. The majority, and we're talking now about Kaczynski's continuance of Kaczynski, keeping in mind what we said about Scalia and what you just heard there. The majority falls prey to the delusion, popular in some circles, that ordinary people are too careless and stupid to own guns, and we would be far better off leaving all weapons in the hands of professionals on the government payroll. But the simple truth, born of experience, is that tyranny thrives best when government need not fear the wrath of an armed people. Our own sorry history bears this out. Think about it. Our own sorry history bears this out. Disarmament was the tool of choice for subjugating both slaves and free blacks in the South. In Florida, patrols searched blacks' home for weapons, confiscated those found, and punished their owners without judicial process. In the North, by contrast, blacks exercised their right to bear arms to defend against racial mob violence. And we could go on. I'm going to have to skip in the essence of time. All too many of the other great tragedies of history, Stalin's atrocities, the killing fields of Cambodia, the Holocaust, to name but a few, were perpetrated by armed troops against unarmed populations. Many could well have been avoided or mitigated had the perpetrators known their intended victims were equipped with a rifle and 20 bullets apiece, as the Militia Act required here. If a few hundred Jewish fighters in the Warsaw Ghetto could hold off the Wehrmacht for almost a month with only a handful of weapons, 6 million Jews armed with rifles could not so easily have been herded into cattle cars. My excellent colleagues, Kaczynski went on to remind us, seems to have forgotten these bitter lessons of history, he said. The prospect of tyranny may not grab the headlines the way vivid stories of gun crime routinely do, but few saw the Third Reich coming until it was too late. The Second Amendment is a doomsday provision. We're right back to where we started. One designed for those exceptionally rare circumstances where all other rights have failed, where the government refuses to stand for re-election and silences those who protest, where courts have lost the courage to oppose, or can find no one to enforce their decrees. However improbable these contingencies may seem today, facing them unprepared is a mistake a free people get to make only once. I'm going to leave you with that today on Armed American Radio's Daily Defense here in the gunbroker.com studios on the Car Arms Platinum microphone. All of it brought to you today by X Insurance. Incredible information indeed. I wish we had a couple more hours. Enjoy the rest of your day. Think about what you heard today. We'll see you on the radio tomorrow.
You've just filled your prescription for freedom with Mark Walters, presented by X Insurance. X Insurance on the Armed American Radio Network.
You done with me?
I'm good if you're good.
I think I am. Hold on one second. Let me double check something. Yeah, I think I'm good to rock and roll. Good stuff.
All right, cool.
All right, brother. I will see you tomorrow here in the Armed American Radio Daily Defense Studios.
Same bat time, same bat channel.
Gunbroker.com studio and the Car Arms Platinum microphone. All of it brought to you by X Insurance. I was hit one of the motions of X Insurance, Gunbroker.com, and the Car Arms Studios.
Yep.
All right, Holmes. Talk to you tomorrow. I'm going to cut you loose.
See you, man.
See ya. All right. Very fun show today. I love programs like that. It's incredibly informative. I wish I had more time. I apologize. I've 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 marked tabs open in order to move down one to the other, and I was having to pick and choose my fights. Thank God for online highlighters. I could have gotten twisted up. But I hope you enjoyed the program very much. Very, very profound and very prophetic words, and you don't have to dig back that far to find it. Of course, I didn't even get to this point yet. I'll remind us tomorrow, but Heller wiped out that lock your case. Wiped it out in 2008. Why? Because Heller and Scalia's wording found that the Second Amendment did in fact protect an individual right. And they went ahead and did the same thing these courts decided they thought they did by, going out and looking at everything that the Second Amendment did, looking into the attendant case law. They were lying. This was the Ninth Circuit. They had no intention whatsoever of supporting the individual right. But as Kaczynski said so beautifully, they had no problem doing it when it's something they like, which is what took us, why I started off with Scalia today. Fun stuff. I got as much of it in as I could for you for the hour. Enjoy the rest of your day, guys. Got a lot of work to do because, it's Monday on the heels of the Sunday Monster Cast. So enjoy the show. Like and share these posts, please. Get them out there. I'm glad to know that we're now back on both platforms. We're now over at YouTube. Flirted with that. Now we know what we're doing. We're back over on Facebook. We've got there's a lot of growth coming and a lot of fun stuff. And support our sponsors, please. Please support our sponsors. Enjoy the rest of your day, guys.